Alright everybody, welcome back. Wyatt here again at the Team O'Neill Rally School. We just wanted to do a quick short video today and talk a little bit about stage notes. Whether you're planning on competing or you're just watching some rally videos and wondering what's going on, stage notes are kind of the shorthand descriptions that the co-driver is reading to the driver just slightly ahead of time so that he knows what's coming up down the road, what corners there are, what other terrain features you might have to worry about. So it seems very complicated as you're watching rally videos, or certainly if you're looking at getting into the sport. This can be a little bit confusing sometimes, but it's really based on a very simple set of notes, and it's really the easiest way that people have found over the last 60, 70, 80 years of rallying or whatever people have been doing to convey all the information that the team needs to get through any kind of road in the world as quickly as possible. Here in America, just so you know, there's a little bit of a difference. When we show up at a rally, or if you go to do a rally, every team is given the same book. And these notes are made by a crew that goes through the road beforehand. There's what they call a Gemba device in the vehicle that they drive down the road that's got some accelerometers and GPS and some other stuff in it. And it basically comes up with the degrees of the corners and this sort of stuff. So this is made by a robot essentially. And the driver has some input into it and they can change the notes a little bit from what comes out from the computer. But these are made by a computer, and that's what we're racing with. In the international world, when you go racing other places, even into Canada and Mexico, and certainly if you went to Europe or anywhere else, you're going to get a blank book when you start a rally, and you're going to drive through one time and make your own notes however you want them to be. But for the sake of, here we are in America, we're running on stage notes. Let's take a look at these and see how they work. The first few things, the most basic way we can make this, and if you were going to go do a rally, your first rally, really all that you need to know is corners are graded on a scale of 1 to 6. 1 being an extremely tight acute hairpin turn and 6 being very easy. So if you had a straight road, it would be straight, but say there was a slight turn in the road, that would be a right 6. And as the corners start to get tighter, they decrease in number to represent the road ahead. So 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 is a very tight corner, and a 1 is essentially a hairpin turn. So as you're watching these videos, or if you're planning on going racing, and you hear the co-driver say, right 6 into left 6 and some other words, basically you're flat out. You can think about these. A lot of people, it helps to think about what gear you might be in if you had 6 speeds in your transmission. So a 6th gear corner, you'd be going as fast as the car can go. A 5, you might check your speed a little. A 4 is still a pretty high speed turn. A 3, okay, you probably got to get on the brakes pretty good before you get there. A 2 is tight, and a 1 is essentially a first gear turn. You might be using the handbrake just to get around it and that sort of thing. So these corners are separated by distances. So if you're watching a rally video and you hear the guy and the passenger say right 4, 200, left 3, what does that mean? That's a distance, and it's a distance in yards or meters, however you want to think about it. Essentially it doesn't matter, they're as close as makes any difference. But if you had a note that was right 5, 100, left 4, you would know that, okay, you're going very fast through a right-hand turn that opens up onto a straightaway. At the end of that straightaway, you've got left 4, which is still a pretty quick corner, nothing too much to worry about. So really, if you were going to go do a rally, that's almost all you need to know. It is a lot more complicated than that though, because typically for one turn, a driver can usually process 1 or 2 pieces of information for that corner when they're new. As they start to push harder and drive faster and get more experience with these notes, they might be able to handle 2 or 3 pieces of information for that corner. 3 or 4 might even be overwhelming for someone with a lot of experience. It might just not even matter. So you'll see a lot of these modifiers out there where you've got your basic corners right here. Some of the common ones that you're going to see out there and you're going to hear if you're watching the videos and you're trying to figure out what's going on would be right 3 over crest. and that's how that would be spelled out. That essentially means that you've got a right 3, but in the middle of that corner it goes over a hill. Well, that's going to make a big difference with how you set the car up and the speed that you carry, and you make sure you get a good line on it, and if the car does get a little bit light, your tires aren't touching the ground so well, you're set up to make it down the road. You might have crest into right 3. Okay, well that means there's a big crest or something that could unsettle the car, and immediately after it, the road turns right 3. So that's something you're going to want to know about. You're also going to see right 3 into crest. Seems like semantics, but it does make a big difference. In this situation, right 3 into crest, that just means you've got your right 3, and when the corner's finished, essentially, it goes up and over a crest. The same thing is going to happen for jumps. They're going to be spelled out the same way, essentially. Jump into right 3 over jump, right 3 into jump. So you're going to plan how you set the vehicle up and what you're doing based on those as necessary and as described by this. You might see small crest, you might see over crest long, which means it's a long crest. Some of these descriptors really don't matter your first few rallies, or if you're even in a slow car. Okay, the fact that that's a long crest, is that really going to affect you too much? Probably not so much there, but you can deal with that as you go along. But the crests, the jumps, the small crests, the long crests, these descriptors of the terrain that you're coming into are pretty important. They're going to limit the visibility you have around turns, and they're going to unsettle the car when you get there. Some of the other things that you'll find once you start to get some experience, and it's like, okay, right 5, 200, left 3, all right, well, you're gonna find there's these 6 variations of corners, but really each one has a plus and a minus, because a lot of times you might be going around to right 5. Well, again, this is made by a computer that's very accurate, and it's gauging exactly how much the road's turned. And that computer will know if it drives down the road and it makes it around a corner that's not quite as tight as a 5, but it's tighter than a 6, it's going to call that a 5 plus. So you might have a right 5 plus, you might have a right 5 minus, you might have a right 6 minus, you might have a right 6 plus, which is essentially just a very slight kink in the road that you might not even notice, honestly. So with each of these having a plus and a minus, your 6 flavors of corner actually turn into 18 flavors of corner. So that can get a little complicated for a novice driver, or even for an experienced driver. It might not matter so much. You know, you might find a situation where the notes, as they've printed out of the computer, it can sometimes be a little bit gibberish, right? You might have right 4 plus into, meaning there's really no distance in between 2 corners, left 3 minus. Okay, well, that's a little more information to deal with. You know, you might see that this computer has made a note that you've got to digest into the human brain, and it doesn't always work so well. It'll happen pretty often where it says right 4 plus over long small crest into left 3 minus opens over jump. And the opens here just means the corner gets easier halfway through. You could have an opens or a tightens. We'll talk about that very quickly. You know, right 4 tightens is going to be spelled out like that. It's a right 4 that gets a little more like a 3 at the end. Or you might have a right 4 opens, which means it's a right 4 that gets a little more like a 5 halfway through the corner. So that's that. But essentially, the problem you're going to see when you do start rallying, or when you do start watching videos and hearing these notes, is that computer's going to print out something like this. And you're going to be driving down the road, and your co-driver all of a sudden is going to say right 4 plus over long small crest into left 3 minus opens over jump. What did you retain? How much of that did you really process and digest and turn into an actual course of action? That's difficult. So beforehand, you might take a look at this and say, well, all right, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 pieces of information for 2 corners. And a right 4 long over small, whatever, it's the road is just doing this and there's a jump at the end of it. So do you need all of this? Probably not. So your job when you start racing is to figure out what you need to hear, because the computer generated notes don't digest well in the human brain, and it's going to work differently from my brain to someone else's brain, to your neighbor's brain, to your girlfriend's brain, to whoever. Everybody takes these shorthand notes here and crosses out things, circles things, deletes things, adds things, changes things, whatever it might be, and that's the name of the game, is to do that stuff so that when your co-driver says something, you immediately get a good mental picture of what's coming up, and you can make an effective plan of action as far as the speed you're carrying, the line you take, whether you've got some angle coming into something, whatever it might be. So you could take something like this, and in America you have to say, okay, what's important? Does that matter that that's a plus? Not so much. Not at all. Because you've got a tighter corner coming up, you're not going to maximize your speed there anyway. The fact that this is a long, small crest, I don't particularly care. I would certainly get rid of long and small. Maybe leave the crest because you don't know. Into left 3 minus, opens over jump. Do you care that it opens? Anytime something gets easier, you don't necessarily need to know. It's when something gets tougher or tighter or harder or scarier or more dangerous, that's where it's very important. So this opens, not really so much of a problem. If this was your first rally, what a lot of people might do, and it's certainly a good call, instead of left 3 minus, you might consider making that left 2. What the heck's the difference? You know, a left 3 minus is this degree of corner and a left 2 is that. Essentially you're going to slow down too much. Okay, wonderful. That keeps you on the road. If you're really worried about maximizing your speed and you're battling and you're trying to get trophies and win races and make your sponsors happy and do everything else, sure, okay, left 3 minus and go through there a little bit quicker. But really your first few rallies, make it a left 2, move on with your life. Everything's going to be happy at the end of the day. So you've taken that line of computer gibberish and turned it into right 4 over crest into left 2 over jump. So now when your co-driver says right 4 over crest into left 2 over jump, I know right 4 over crest into left 2 over jump, and that's more easily digestible for most people. However it is, you need to change that though for yourself. Your own personal views on that is entirely up to you. What's important, what's not. Filter that information down. You really got to kind of boil down and condense it to the really, really important stuff, because oftentimes you don't have time to get out all of this information. At speed, these notes that are made by a computer, literally if you try to go racing through here and your co-driver tries to read all of this information, they might not get all of the words out in time at the speed you're going before you're already there. You know, road on right, small jump into left 5 short pass, road on left, small crest 50, double caution, small crest into left 3 plus 100. First of all, can you remember anything that I just said? You might remember the left 3 or the 100 at the end. That's about all I got out of it. And second of all, this is a very high speed section. The co-driver is just talking as fast as he can to get the words out, but it's inconsequential. Small jump into right, left 5 short pass, road on left. Don't need that. Small crest, probably don't need that. 50, it's a very short distance into a double caution, small crest into left 3 plus. Out of all of that gibberish, left 5, the fact that it's a short corner, do you really care? Probably not. Double caution, small crest into left 3 plus, you could change that into double caution, blind left 3 plus. Small crest, all that's going to do is maybe hide what's actually happening to you. So you can take that, okay, it's a small crest, you won't be able to see it, just change that into blind left 3 plus. There's a million ways to do this. What I might do here is very different from what any other competitor might do, and any other competitor is going to be very different from the next guy down the line. A few of the things that popped up right there that are worth noting is long and short corners, because corners do have a certain radius as measured at least by the Jumbo system. So you could potentially have something like a right, call that a 4. A right 4 short would essentially be the same degree of corner, but maybe not quite so long. You know, so that would be a right 4 short. A right 4 long would hold the same radius of bend, maybe longer. And that might not be the best representation just doodling on the whiteboard, but you get the idea. There's right 4 long, there's right 4 extra long, there's right 4 super long, very long, and then there's right 4 over a distance. You know, if it holds that radius for more than long, very long, extra long, it'll be right 4 over 200 meters. Or whatever it might be. The computer will measure this distance that it holds that arc, and it will appear as right 4 over 200. Now that doesn't mean right 4 then 200 meters is straight. Right 4 over 200, it's a 200 meter long corner that holds a continuous radius arc. So those are variables that you might want to know and certainly are worth taking into. The other thing that we just ran into, just looking at that book of stage notes, is the cautions. And a caution can come up anytime you're going into a situation where something potentially dangerous is about to happen, right? So the organizers will take a look at the notes. Whoever makes the notes will say, okay, it's right 5 and a left 6 and a 200 and a small crest and a right 5 and a left 6 and a crest into a hairpin right. Okay, they'll back up and put a caution in the notes. And there's really single caution. 1 exclamation mark basically means really pay attention, be a little careful. There's something here that can catch you out. If you just try and work it through there and just Hail Mary into this corner, there's a problem. A double caution basically means super pay attention. If you miss this note or screw up on this corner, there's a serious risk of injury or breaking your car or something like that. And then there's a triple caution, which basically means slow the hell down. There's something either very dangerous or very likely to break your car. The problem is that the Gemma system doesn't differentiate between those two things. Coming into a dangerous situation where you don't want to crash, they also use cautions for bumps and potholes and ditches in the road and that sort of thing that are going to break your car. So they'll use cautions for both. You can leave it that way if you like to. Absolutely, nothing wrong with that. You can keep the caution, meaning slow down. Some people don't use the word caution, people use the word care. That's fine. Some people use the word neat, meaning don't screw up here or something like that. It's entirely up to you how you describe that verbally, the exclamation marks, but really you might have something that was left 6, 200, crest, it would be caution, crest 20, left 2. The caution is here because if you don't slow down before you go over that crest, you're surely going to go off the corner in the left 2. You could change that. Keep it if you like. Absolutely keep it if you like. You can move the caution to before here if you were really careful. But essentially what you need to know here is don't go over that crest flat out. How are you going to say that so that you don't have to hear something, interpret in your head and turn it into a plan and then take action on it? It's easier to just write down the plan. That takes that whole interpretation part out of it. If you just write your plan down, then the co-driver tells you the plan, that's great. So you could change that instead of this caution, 200 brake before crest into left 2, right? So now you don't have to think caution. Is there a bump? Is there a danger? Is there a problem? Is what's going on with this caution? Which is fine if you like it. Entirely your call. But you can change that into just something that's more deliberately telling you what to do. We see that a lot of the time in the notes. What you're going to find is very often, if there's bad terrain or there is danger somewhere, they're going to tell you about that, which is wonderful. It's very nice of them. You'll see things like left 4, rocks outside, and they'll spell it with an X. Or they'll say right 5, tree inside. Meaning don't cut the corner, there's a tree there. You might hit it and hurt yourself. So the problem is when the co-driver is telling you these notes, you're formulating a plan. He says left, you go left. He says right, you go right. He says up, you go up. He says down, you go down. He says rocks inside. You're going to look at the rocks inside. You're going to intentionally head for the rocks inside because you're kind of in the robot mode at that point. You're going to hit the rocks on the inside. So you can change that to left 4, stay in. Some people prefer keep in. Some people would put stay mid. Some people would put don't go wide. But any one of those options that you can choose, or probably any one that you're thinking of right now, is probably better than keeping rocks outside. Because he's telling you what to do and you're really just painting by numbers for a second while you're driving. He says rocks outside, you're going to go to the rocks outside. Put one of those things. Same thing, tree inside, change that to no cut, don't cut, stay mid, keep mid, neat. Neat is a great one. A lot of people use neat a lot of the time in any of these situations. There's a right 4 with a narrow bridge, or there's drop-offs, or there's trees on either side of the road, or for some reason it's basically saying don't just Hail Mary into this corner like you want to. Take this one at 60-70%, get through it and go again. That's where neat comes in. And you might only use it a half a dozen times in a whole rally, as long as you know every time I hear neat, I've got to back it down a little, get through there clean so I don't hurt myself or damage the car, and we'll continue and get to the end of the rally, which is really the goal. If you're ever questioning, oh, do I make this note so I can go faster through here, or do I make this note a little more cautious so I get to the end? Always go more cautious so you get to the end. There are ways to make notes faster and to push yourself to go quicker where you know it's appropriate, but anywhere there's any potential danger or tight corners or anything like that, always err on the side of caution. And neat is a great way to do that. You can come up with your own word. It doesn't matter. You can say orange, you can say lemon, whatever you want to hear that's going to make you know that for some reason you've got to be careful here. That's entirely fine. Completely make it up, it's entirely up to you. Doesn't matter to me. As long as it gets you to the end of the race, everybody's happy. When we're talking about notes that sometimes can make you quicker, how to drive faster on these roads, how to make some of these things make more sense to you, there for a long time was a second option to this whole system. You used to be able to, when you entered a rally, you could choose between numeric stage notes, which is everything we're talking about, or descriptive stage notes, which is different. So you have the same thing where you've got 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And again, very rough, not at all totally indicative of the degrees that the computer calculates, but you get the idea. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If this didn't make sense to some people, hearing right 6, 200, stay left, right 5, 100, into left 3, whatever, too many numbers, there used to be the option of getting flat, easy, medium, K, which is the sort of shape of the K, bad, and hairpin. You are more than free to replace those on your own still if you want to. It might make sense to do it in some places, but maybe not others. A lot of times people use it for maybe just 1 and 2. Because if you're flying down the road at 100 miles an hour and your co-driver says 200, left 6, 100, right 1, you're thinking, oh great, cranking, yeah, right 1, oh sure. that's not the right thing, because that's a very slow first gear corner and you've really got to be slowed down, and a lot of people crash. These are the crashy corners, you know, or the lower speed ones is where people come in too fast and go off the road. So if hearing bad right or hairpin left gets your brain triggered a little more to ooh, right 6, 100, right 5, 50, hairpin left, gets you on the brakes a little more and gets you slowing down sooner, that's wonderful. Do absolutely whatever you need to do. And a lot of people switch the easy stuff out as well, because most people don't go fast enough on the fast stuff, and they go too fast into the slow stuff. When you start out, that's very common. You'll see it everywhere, where you're staying in 4th gear and being careful on the fast bits, and then you're overcharging these hairpin turns and crashing. So maybe replacing 6s with flat, you know, and then you're hearing more like flat right 200, flat left, stay in it, 100 right 4 over crest, and then you get back into it. So that'll push you a little more when it's appropriate. Sure, if it's right 6 into left 2, don't do it, but all the other 6s you can replace them with flat. If you find that's a problem you have, change the notes to accommodate your driving. Same thing with these ones. You can certainly change the notes however you want to do it. A lot of people as well change left 5, right 6, right 2 into 6 left, 5 right, 2 left. Because when you're really going quickly down the road and there's a turn coming up, the direction of that turn might not be as important as the degree of that turn. If you've got 500 yards and then a right 3, the fact that it's a right is definitely secondary to the fact that it's a 3, because getting your speed slowed down and getting yourself set up and getting down a couple gears or whatever you need to do is way more important than turning right or left when you get there. So, you know, you might find that, again, you've got a 200 meter straightaway coming into this thing, and this is your right 3. Hearing 3 right instead might make the difference for you personally. Might not at all. You might hate this idea. That's the nice thing about these stage notes, is you can change it however the heck you want. You might do it sometimes. A lot of drivers do that sometimes, but definitely it's just a different way to do it, and you can mix that with the descriptive system, and you can do whatever you want. So instead of right 6, 200, left 3 over crest into right 2, you would have 6 right 200, 3 left over crest into 2 right. Or flat right 200, K left over crest into bad right. Or you could do anything else that you want. It's not paint by numbers. It's a little more just paint watercolor flowers or whatever you want to think of it as. You don't have to keep what the book says at all. You could certainly replace it whichever way your brain works. It's your job with your co-driver to work on it and try different things and see what works and see what doesn't work, and come up with a formula that helps you just get a mental picture, make a plan, go for it. Anytime you can just put the plan in there, even better. And any of that stuff is fair game. That's why if you listen to some of the videos, you'll see not everybody uses the same notes. The one other thing you can do is you can reverse the whole system. It's a lot of work for your co-driver, but a lot of people, when we think about the 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing, a lot of people prefer it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Doesn't matter to me, doesn't matter to anyone you're racing against, it only matters to you. It's a little bit of work to do that, because your co-driver essentially needs to either know that and really rewrite this whole book the day before the rally. You get this book when you show up at a rally, and you get the chance to go look at all the different stages and make any changes to these notes that you want. But if you're gonna do something as dramatic as a full switch here, and it might make sense to you, it would be right 1, 200, 3 becomes a 4, into 2 becomes a 5. Or it's a right 5. So hopefully that's a pretty decent introduction for you if you're racing here in America. You know, the American Rally Association, Rally America, NASA Rally Sport, any of these guys, it's all going to be the same notes. So once you come up with a formula that works for you, run with it, and have fun out there, and we'll catch you next time.